Yesterday, Robert Kelly was indicted before a Cook County grand jury on 10 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse involving 4 victims. The first victim, H.W., was involved in incidents which occurred between May 26, 1998 and May 25, 1999. A grand jury returned an indictment on 4 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse based on the victim being under the age of 17 and Robert Kelly being more than 5 years older than the victim. The victim met Robert Kelly on her 16th birthday, where she was celebrating at a restaurant. At that encounter, the victim told Robert Kelly it was her 16th birthday that day. Robert Kelly's manager then gave the victim Robert Kelly's business card with Robert Kelly's personal cell phone number written on it and told the victim Robert Kelly wanted her to call him. The victim's mother heard this and took the card and told Robert Kelly's manager that the victim was only 16. The victim later got that card from her mother's purse and called Robert Kelly. Robert Kelly told the victim to come to his studio. Robert Kelly told the victim after her dad dropped her off at school, she could take a cab to his studio. The victim followed Robert Kelly's instructions. At that first encounter at Robert Kelly's studio, located at 865 North Larrabee in Chicago, Cook County, Illinois, Robert Kelly had difficulty maintaining an erection and penetrated the victim repeatedly vaginally and orally. Afterwards, Robert Kelly told the victim to get an envelope with money from the receptionist and that the victim assumed that that money was to pay for the cab rides to and from Robert Kelly's studio. The envelope contained a large sum of money, more than was needed to pay for the 2 cab rides. The victim had similar sexual encounters about once a month with Robert Kelly from May 26, 1998 to May 25, 1999. The second victim, R.L., was involved in an incident which occurred between September 26, 1998 and September 25, 2001. A grand jury returned an indictment on 2 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse based on the victim being under the age of 17 and Robert Kelly being more than 5 years older than the victim. In 2001, a witness had conversations with Robert Kelly and Robert Kelly's associates where the witness was asked to retrieve videotapes showing Robert Kelly having sexual intercourse with the victim in this case when she was only 14 years old. The witness obtained that video and watched it. The witness eventually turned this video over to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office through his attorney. The witness has identified the girl in the video as the girl he knows to be the niece of S.E. Additionally, the witness identified the scenes from the video as having been from Robert Kelly's house located at 1 Merrose Lane, Olympia Fields, Cook County, Illinois. In the video, the victim repeatedly says she is 14 years old, and Robert Kelly is seen penetrating the victim orally and vaginally, and the victim performs oral sex on Robert Kelly. S.E. has identified the girl in the video as her niece, the victim in this case. The third victim, L.C., was involved in an incident which occurred on February 18, 2003. A grand jury returned an indictment on 1 count of aggravated criminal sexual abuse based on the transmission of semen by Robert Kelly upon any part of the body of the victim for the purpose of sexual gratification during the course of the underlying forcible felony of aggravated criminal sexual assault attempt. On February 18, 2003, at 865 North Larrabee Street in Chicago, Cook County, Illinois, the victim was 24 years old and worked as a hairdresser for Robert Kelly. While the victim was waiting alone in a room for Robert Kelly to come in so she could braid his hair, Robert Kelly entered saying he didn't want his hair braided that day. He wanted his head massaged. At the time he said this, Robert Kelly had his pants pulled down and he was pointing to his penis. Robert Kelly grabbed the victim by the head and tried to force her mouth onto his exposed penis, but the victim was able to resist. Robert Kelly then masturbated and ejaculated onto the victim and spit in her face several times. The shirt the victim was wearing was submitted to the Illinois State Police for DNA testing, and the semen was identified on the shirt. The male DNA identified in the semen sample is a match to Robert Kelly's DNA profile. The fourth victim, JP, was involved in incidents which occurred between May 1st, 2009 and January 31st, 2010. A grand jury returned an indictment on 3 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse, on the victim being under the age of 17 and Robert Kelly being more than 5 years older than the victim. This victim attended the criminal trial of Robert Kelly in Chicago in 2008 and met Robert Kelly getting his autograph after court one day. The victim told Robert Kelly how old she was, and he invited her to his house at 1 Merrill's Lane, Olympia Fields, Cook County, Illinois. Between May 1st, 2009 and January 31st, 2010, the victim had vaginal and oral sex with Robert Kelly multiple times. At times, Robert Kelly would spit on her, slap her in the face, and choke her.